Hello and welcome to my channel. Today we'll be talking about healthcare in the United States. Now, few people could deny that in our country the cost of healthcare has reached astronomical levels. The real debate is whether that's a necessary evil or if it's just evil. Hello, my name is Robin, and this is Politics and Religion at the Dinner Table. Now, the first argument I usually see people make for why we do need the healthcare system we currently have is because countries with a universal single-payer system have such long wait times where as long as we have the money, we can just waltz right into the doctor's office and get medical attention. The first thing I'd like to point out is that no, even in the United States, we do have wait times. We cannot just go into the doctor's office and just get medical care whenever, as long as we have the money. So the real question is, does the U.S. have shorter wait times than countries with a universal single-payer healthcare system? And I looked into this. Compared to Canada, that actually does seem to be the case, as only 43% of adults in Canada were able to make same or next day appointments when they needed care, as opposed to 51% in the U.S. However, the Netherlands, Australia, the UK, France, and Germany all actually had shorter wait times than we do in the U.S. And that only counts the wait times we have once we actually decide to make an appointment. It does not take into account all the time that Americans spend waiting to go to the doctor until they can save up enough money, or just deciding not to go at all because it's just too expensive. And then some people go like, okay, maybe it's not faster. But when you cite these costs like $10,000 to have a baby or $50,000 to fix a broken leg, that's not really the real cost of what you're going to pay, because what about insurance? And it turns out that's astronomically expensive as well. The average cost of health insurance is $320 per month for an individual, or $833 per month for a family. Now, if you think after paying that, your health insurance is actually going to pay your bill, you'd have to pause and look at what the deductible for these plans is. Now, the average deductible for an individual is $4,358, whereas it would be $7,983 for a family. Which means that by the time you pay all your premiums for a year and reach your deductible, you've paid $8,210 in a year before your insurance company will pay anything if you're doing it as an individual, or $17,979 if you have a family plan. Now, I don't know a lot of people who that's particularly affordable for. And some people argue, well, it would be even more if it was single payer. But according to the balance, a single payer model could potentially only cost a fourth of what non-single payer models cost, due to what we currently pay in administrative costs, such as the $500 billion in administrative waste that we spend each year. A lot of that is due to the fact that hospitals, due to the many different insurance companies, each with their own set of rules for what has to be charted and noted and charged for, ends up forcing hospitals to hire specialists just to sort out how to bill each of these different insurance companies. A tax increase due to universal health care is almost guaranteed to cost less than this. And I've seen people argue, well, I don't want a universal health care system because I don't want to pay for somebody else's health care. But the issue is, You already are. Those premiums you pay? Insurance companies use the premiums from healthy people to pay when unhealthy people actually manage to reach their deductibles. But more than that, they're also paying themselves. They're paying themselves very well. They're giving themselves record-breaking profits on your back. United Health, for example, had profits of $46.5 billion in the second quarter of 2016. That's $46.5 billion that the average working American had to pay for their health care that didn't go to their health care, didn't go to someone else's health care, just went into someone's pocket. Now, aside from not wanting to make someone rich when they're not even paying out until I make myself poor, a lot of people do still get stuck with the full bill when they go to the hospital. For example, obviously people without insurance do get stuck with the full bill. Also, how good your insurance makes a huge difference to how much your insurance pays out. And unfortunately, we don't get to choose our own insurance. Our employers do. Which means that we have a sort of class system in our country where people who work for big employers tend to get really good deals. They barely have to pay anything. It's all paid for by the insurance. Where people who work for small companies have crappy insurance and usually, despite still paying premiums that are just as high if not higher, end up not getting much if any help paying their health care bills at all. But that's not all. If your health care is tied to your employer, that means once you get sick in a country with no guaranteed sick days, you could very well lose your job. And then even if you have a fancy hoity-toity position at a big firm or whatever, your health insurance is suddenly gone, and all those premiums you paid went into someone's pocket and aren't helping you at all. You're now uninsured. And you think, fine, I won't deal with this terrible deal my employer is giving me just to rip it out under my feet the second I get too sick to work. I am going to buy my own insurance. Well, good luck with that. I looked at various health insurance sites to see what I could get on my own. If I was to go through Medical Mutual, the lowest premium would be $314 a month with an $8,150 deductible. No available plans had under a $2,000 deductible, and even the one with the $2,000 deductible would have been $578 per month. Well, of course, Medical Mutual is not the only health insurance, so I looked at Anthem. Their cheapest plan was $348 per month with an $8,150 deductible. Their lowest deductible was also $2,000 with a $550 per month premium. Well, that doesn't look like an improvement there. I tried to look at Blue Cross Blue Shield's numbers, but unfortunately their site does not allow you to get their numbers without speaking directly to a representative. So then I turned to Humana, and their site is only set up to give you quotes if you are a Medicare patient looking for coverage through them, or if you are an employer looking to get coverage for your entire company. The system is quite simply not set up for an individual to get their own coverage. And you might go, okay, so it's expensive. You'll probably lose your insurance the second you need it most. And you will probably go bankrupt. But hey, isn't all that a small price to pay for the best healthcare system in the world? So I decided to look into whether we have the best healthcare system in the world. The U.S. has a lower score when it comes to avoiding deaths that are considered preventable in the following countries: the Netherlands, Australia, Sweden, Japan, Germany, France, and the United Kingdom. Now, of course, this is hardly surprising, considering for the purposes of this survey, preventable deaths was defined as deaths that could have been treated if someone had gotten medical attention in time. And of course, with our system being prohibitively expensive and resulting in people not going to the doctor, and of course with our wait times being longer than all of those countries, then of course that's going to happen. But that's not the only area where we're failing. We also did worse than all of those countries in the following areas: potential years of life loss, years lost due to disability, hospital admissions for preventable diseases, a higher rate of medical, medicine, and lab errors, a higher rate of post-operative suture ruptures, probably due to our culture of getting back to work the second you're discharged because of your limited sick time, if you are fortunate enough to have sick time, of course, and a higher rate of infant mortality. Our rates of obstetric trauma during delivery is worse than Sweden and Canada. But at least we're still ahead of a lot of other countries in that particular area. Now, I am not just trying to be down on the United States healthcare system. There are areas we do well in. For example, we do have a lower mortality rate for heart attacks, ischemic strokes, various forms of cancer, post-operative clots, and post-operative sepsis. Those are all lower in the US than other countries, but I don't think that we need to sacrifice our excellence in those areas in order to make improvements in others. Our lack of people seeking out preventative medicine due to prohibitive healthcare costs ends up costing American citizens so much in the long run that could be fixed if we just had a basic system to allow people to afford at least preventative medicine, if nothing else. And that's not the only issue. As with any system that's for profit, when there are branches that aren't making enough money, those branches get shut down. And unfortunately for people in rural areas, they're not profitable. Rich people don't tend to live in those areas. They don't have great insurance. And that means a lot of times they can't pay the bill. If we had some sort of government system to pay the bill for them, it could make all the difference in the world. Those hospitals could stay open and still make money. But we don't have that. And because there's fewer people in that area, that makes it even less profitable. So those hospitals just get shut down. Our rural areas are where our food comes from. Not to mention, people in rural areas are human beings with just as much right to live as anybody else. So how are we going to sit by and let those hospitals get shut down? We need a better system, and we need it now. And we need to keep that thought in mind with this coming November election. I know that a lot of people were disappointed that Joe Biden got the nomination. I know that a lot of people were hoping for Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren to really shake things up and completely change our healthcare system. But we don't have them. And unfortunately, our only two options that are viable at this point are Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Now we can look at what Joe Biden has proposed, and unfortunately he does not want to do a single-payer system. What he has proposed is a public option that would be available to all American citizens, even if their employer offers health insurance. Now, if he follows through on that, that would actually be very helpful, because even if you were to not opt into the public option, it would at least give health insurance companies something they had to compete against. They'd have to offer something that was better than this other option that every citizen would have access to. That is what Joe Biden is arguing for. We don't know if he'll follow through. We don't know if he can make it happen. But what we do know is what the alternative is. Because Donald Trump has had 4 years in office, which, aside from getting rid of the individual mandate, he's proposed nothing to fix our current healthcare system. And I've seen some people argue that he has one in his pocket, but he just doesn't want to unveil it without Democrat support. But I find this idea highly doubtful for several reasons. One of which is that he had majority in House and Senate for his first 2 years in office. So he could have easily pushed through any plan he wanted without Democrat support in that time. And he's certainly not the type to hold back just because he fears Democrats won't approve. After all, he pushed through the whole wall thing, even though Democrats were railing against that. And in general, he simply does not seem to care about getting Democrat approval. He retweeted a video where a man says the only good Democrat is a dead Democrat, and then there's thunderous applause. And yes, I know later in the video the guy said I meant politically dead, not literally dead, but he got applause way before that clarification, which, even with the clarification, saying you want that large of a percentage of Americans to have no political voice is disturbing in its own right. But anyone with the even slightest inkling of empathy for their fellow Americans should be intensely disturbed by the fact that our nation is so divided that people would cheer on someone calling for the death of so many Americans just because they don't share their political views. The fact that this did not only not disturb Donald Trump, but was something he actively retweeted, lets me know that he does not want Democrat support. And so, in the absence of any other health bill proposed by the Republicans, I am left to conclude that the current healthcare system as it currently is exactly the healthcare system they want. And so, by virtue of Joe Biden proposing literally anything else, I am forced to conclude that he is the best available option. Now, you might assume that I'm saying that a universal healthcare system is the best possible system and I won't consider anything else. But that's not the case. I don't actually know that. But when I look at the numbers for countries that do have such a system and look at our own, I do think at the very least it is an improvement over what we currently have, as long as we do it in a strategic and reasonable manner. And what I do know is that our current system is expensive, wasteful, and leaves a lot of people without any health care at all. Some areas without any hospitals at all. And I do know that that needs to change. Anyway, this has been Politics and Religion at the Dinner Table. Until next time, bye-bye!